Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be discussing the Epic of Gilgamesh. There is no author because the author is lost to history. In the same way, Homer is a name that we give to the author of the Iliad and the Odyssey, but we don't have an idea of who Homer was specifically. So we also don't know who the author of the Epic of Gilgamesh is, but we do know that this is a very, very old text. In fact, what's fascinating is George Smith, who was one of the scholars that first discovered one of the tablets that this was written on. So the story of Gilgamesh is well known among archaeologists or the people who study these ancient texts, but they hadn't found a lot of these clay tablets. But he was reading the cuneiform, and he knew enough to know what he was reading, and he was so excited. He said something like, "I am the first person to have read this in 2,000 years," and he gets up and he starts running around the room and starting to undress himself, which I think his research assistants calmed him down after a while. And what's interesting about the text that we have today, so today in 2021, will never be as good as the text we'll get in 2022, 2023, etc. The reason being that they continue to find more clay tablets as they do more digs, as they uncover more. And there's a lot of clay tablets that are simply cataloged in different libraries and research institutions around the world. So it isn't as if they need to be discovered. They simply need to be brought out from the basement or wherever they are, dusted off, and then entered into this digital shared database in which everything gets updated. So what we have today is remarkably complete compared to what George Smith had in his time when he first discovered that tablet and started running around the room. And what we have now will not be as good as what we'll have in 2022, 2023, however many years in the future. So something to think about that's not only humbling when you realize you're reading a 4,000-year-old text, because George Smith was referring to the fact that people were reading this during the time of Rome, before the time of Christ, but that we had not had any sort of complete textual reference like we have now. Now, to the text itself, I often recommend Penguin editions. There's a link for that in the description below. There are different ways you can arrange this Gilgamesh text. The way that the Penguin edition does it is a bit disjointed. So the first part is the original 12 tablets. He who saw the deep is the famous opening line, and this gives you the rough outline of you could say Gilgamesh's journey. It then includes some poems and some fragments in separate chapters, you could say, so that you can go back and backfill stories that have been related to Gilgamesh but are not part of what is called the standard version. So the entire text is maybe 200 pages total. And so the standard edition's only 97, 99 pages of that. So I would encourage you, if you're going to take the time to read the Epic of Gilgamesh, read every text that's available. And in the Penguin edition, that adds up to maybe about a couple hundred pages. Now, is it the greatest epic ever? No. It's a classic hero's journey that you've seen in the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid, the Divine Comedy, Pilgrim's Progress. But what I think sets this apart from those other examples I just gave, all of them I just gave, the hero learns something along the way. And I am not persuaded upon reflection, and I've actually been thinking about this for a couple weeks because I wanted to do this recording a few weeks ago, is that Gilgamesh, I think, is more of someone who's forced to learn something rather than someone who's consciously seeking something. And in a sense, I don't want to say he's forced to learn. Still implies that he learned. I think it's just imposed. I don't want to give away the ending, but when you get to the ending of the book, it seems as though Gilgamesh unhappily accepts the reality of the situation, but it isn't something transformative for him. It isn't something in which we've gone on a journey with the hero, in which the hero improves and learns things over time. In fact, what I think is surprising about Gilgamesh is the complete opposite of that Gilgamesh seems to not learn anything. To give you some background, Gilgamesh is this classic strongman king. He protects his city. He's made it great. And part of making it great has also been raping women. In this case, exercising his right of the first night with the new bride, as well as disregarding any advice of the elders. So if there's someone who needs to be fought or defense that needs to be taken, he consults the elders. The elders say something. Gilgamesh, you'll know he'll basically do the opposite of that. So it seems the gods, in order to counterbalance Enkidu, which you'll see the same sort of counterbalancing universe with the Force in Star Wars, in which the Force is neither good nor bad. It's simply trying to create balance between two sides. And so you have this dualistic idea of Gilgamesh being an outsized force, so the gods need to create a balance to him, and it's Enkidu. And Enkidu is then created. He does actually manage to bring some balance to Gilgamesh, insofar as the first confrontation, the first meeting they have is Enkidu trying to stop Gilgamesh from his tradition of raping women on their marriage night. And they wrestle, and it looks like Gilgamesh wins, but Gilgamesh says, I've got basically a new drinking buddy, a new fighting buddy, and they go off to have some adventures together. What's interesting is, if Enkidu is supposed to be the balance to Gilgamesh, that doesn't actually happen. He leads Gilgamesh to actually get into more violence, into more murder. However, Enkidu, because of his cooperation with this, is punished by the gods and he's allowed to die. And this plunges Gilgamesh into a sort of melancholy because, oh, my best friend has died. And so in some sense, it isn't so much Enkidu's active presence, his living presence, that spurs some kind of stirrings of change in Gilgamesh, but more his absence. When Enkidu dies, then Gilgamesh is thinking, okay, well, that means I'm going to die as well. How am I going to fix this problem? So then he goes out to seek the solution to the problem of mortality, which is obviously a frequently recurring theme throughout literature, not just Sumerian, Mesopotamian literature, but Western and Eastern literature as well. And it's actually a wonderful ending, I think, in a number of ways. But as I say, Gilgamesh is simply forced to accept this, as this isn't something that he has really wisely sought. We continue to see his foolishness all the way up to the end of the text. And so, for me, this hero's journey is less about the hero learning than we as readers, or in the sense of the oral tradition, when this was originally written down in clay tablets, the hearers of this message, that we can see this cautionary tale of Gilgamesh, that if you are seeking immortality, first of all, it's not on offer, you're just a mortal, but that all mortal things must come to an end. So it doesn't matter how great of a king you are, and how powerful you were in your day, and how many women you slept with, or how rich you were, that at the end you're still going to die. And a famously repeated text, and it's very repetitious. So part of that, I think, is a memory device to help the people who are reciting it to remember, okay, I'm going to go back to and I'm going to say that, is he pictures a maggot falling from the nose of Enkidu. That's what rouses him from his melancholy as he's pondering his friend's death. He just sat there looking at the corpse. And that message is very clear, that if the hero doesn't learn on this journey, at least we as listeners of the messages, as readers of the message, can realize, okay, yes, life is mortal. So if this is all that you're going to put your work into, if you are a materialist and say, this is it, so I've got one shot, okay, fine. But it seems to still be unsatisfying to this polytheistic society. And that leaves an open question, I suppose, at the end of the text, but I still think that the message resonates clearly that all men are mortal, and what you choose to do with your mortality, the time that you have, is really important. It doesn't give you a solution, it doesn't give you an answer, but I think it gives you an answer by outlining a negative answer. What's Gilgamesh's journey? And if you'd like to complement this, you could probably read Ozymandias by John Keats, short poem that I think nicely meshes with the Epic of Gilgamesh. So if you enjoyed this book review, please feel free to like and subscribe. As I say, I've got links to purchase this, and this was a recording that I did only for my patrons some months ago, and now it's being available on YouTube. If you don't want to wait months to see some of these exclusive recordings, feel free to subscribe and support my work. Until next time, keep reading.